Welcome to the world united. Welcome to the world united.
SSANYU BIRIGWA. I would like to introduce her. SSANYU BIRIGWA is a gifted healer who makes you feel at peace from the moment you sense her presence. Her Ugandan ancestral bone healing medicine, combined with scholarly and clinical work in narrative medicine, has transformed the development of the POS3 method. This is a one-of-a-kind person-centered integrative approach for conscious living and holistic health, cultivating environments of bravery and safety, also making spirituality accessible to all. Sanyu is also the co-founder of Narrative Bridge, a firm that creates lectures, workshops, support groups, and programs for institutions of higher learning and organizations looking to improve the empathetic communication skills in a radical way. We are so happy to have her send her video to us. So her topic for today is narrative medicine at the spiritual practice. I'll just play the video.
Greetings. My name is SSANYU BIRIGWA. I am an indigenous bone healer from Uganda, also an adjunct professor of narrative medicine at Columbia University in the city of New York, as well a lecturer of spirituality and health at Columbia Medical Center. It is a pleasure to be here for the third World Parliament on Spirituality. I am humbled to be here to share with you the work of narrative medicine and how it is a spiritual practice in the doing of narrative medicine. But first, what is narrative medicine? Narrative medicine is the clinical and scholarly movement to honor the central role of story in healthcare, to allow for all to engage in stillness, and to employ through narrative investigation wellness of mind, body, and spirit. There's a pedagogy that which we work from. So there's the medical humanities that which we work in that field of investigation of story. Sociocultural practices attuned to this. Medicine in its pure form attunes to this. The daily practice of affirmation attunes to this. And then there's theory. Within the narrative medicine practice, that theory has allowed us to move into these investigative ways. Our story, our personal story, truly becomes our medicine. That has been what I have worked in the clinical and scholarly area of narrative medicine to investigate and continue to work towards a way that our stories that are embedded and what we are also not sharing, right? There's stories that we aren't sharing that still live in our bodies. How does that help us find a ritual of some sort, a spiritual practice? For when that spiritual practice is ignited, we find such beauty, I believe. We find a connectedness to ourself and to others that we might not also attend to if not for our curiosity in listening to stories and what those stories mean. I came up with a colleague of mine in research time at Columbia, this understanding around spiritual pain management and how we can reestablish harmony and balance when we're sick, when we're not feeling well. And what is this mind, body, and spirit approach to medicine that we need to pay a little more attention to? A few quotes that I've been able to share with you tonight are: people are burning out in the medical field and do not have time to feel. This was from a chaplain. We are in the COVID pandemic. right? A global pandemic right now. Many of us might know frontline workers, frontline healthcare workers, who have spent many, many, many hours attending to patients. But for this chaplain to say, I don't have time to feel, that concerns me. Another chaplain in pastoral care shared, we need to read the subtitles of human interaction, ask questions that are not so obvious. Let's think about that. Can we ask questions of not just those who are ill, right? Those who are in a medical space, but can we pivot that question into our communities, into our families? Can we pay attention to the subtitles of these human interactions? An integrative registered nurse shared, we need to engage in stillness because stillness has become a commodity, a luxury. Imagine being still has become a commodity and luxury. That's what she stated. If that's the case, then we really must, in my opinion, spend more time attuning to these stories that live in our bodies. So taking this understanding from a narrative medicine perspective, a clinical perspective, has really helped me create this integrative method called Pause 3. The Pause 3 method is an integrative method that bridges narrative medicine competency, these movements of narrative medicine, and spiritual practice. Deep ways in which we can learn how to attune to our spiritual body by listening and attuning to stories, to attuning to art, to listening to music. It's very important for us to now bridge this understanding that our stories that live in our body, can really be our medicine. But how do we get there? There are 3 movements of narrative medicine that I'm going to attune us to. And that movement of narrative medicine, of attention, the things we may otherwise overlook or hear, the things that we might dismiss, that attention, that's the first movement of narrative medicine. When we attune to attending to the things that we may have otherwise overlooked, it brings us closer to not only ourselves, but the other. Representation. How to receive someone and someone else's ability to share without judgment, right? We all have the ability to share our stories, but are we able to listen to the share without judgment? Because when we become aware of that, we can take a pause and step back to allow the person and the position that that person is taking so we can understand it truly, authentically so. The third movement of narrative medicine is affiliation. This is the place of trust. If we do all of this, that attention, right, that we might have otherwise overlooked, the things that we hear that we may have otherwise not really attentively listened to. And when we bring in the ways in which someone may share their stories, and when we listen, there is no judgment. Bridging those two together, we bring that affiliation, that trust. We're creating trust. So when we pay attention and listen closely, this is the trust space. It begins from within, though. It begins with the individual. It begins with you. It begins with me. And then we are able to cultivate more energy around the community. And that community might be a part of our family, our friends, individuals we've never met before, but we are opening up a space for them to feel welcomed because we are attentively, radically listening to their needs. As I observed and witnessed the way that narrative practice requires me to slow down, to pay attention to what I am feeling as the certain stories that I may not have shared with anyone are bubbling up. And because the space is of safety and bravery, we begin to share these stories that live within through our writing. Part of the narrative medicine practice is to write, is to get into our subconscious. And the vehicle we use many times is art, is literature, music. I want to leave you here today to just take a moment and practice the doing of narrative medicine. And part of that is to, as I began, to slow down, to take a pause. We can do that easily, as I said before and shared, through art, through prose, through music. I have a piece of artwork that I'm going to share. Here we go. This is Hiroshi Sugimoto, photographer. He captures the transient of time. Perhaps as you look at this, you can observe your breath. Perhaps your breath is slowing down as we look at this image, this photo of the sea, with the sea literally bisected, right? There's two levels bisected at the horizon. Maybe you can even notice the water moving softly, right? And each viewer has a different response. Some might see this as an openness, right? Some might see this as a unidentifiable sadness. But whatever one sees and views from this, is perfect. There is no right or wrong way to take this in. Embodiment, taking this in. Use this time to take it in, embody this perhaps stillness or unidentifiable sadness inside of you by simply asking Spirit, what is it that I need to identify within myself? I thank you all for joining me today. I'm leaving you here with this photo. to contemplate, to get curious with. And I'm going to leave you with a quote from my mentor, my former professor, colleague, and dear friend, founder of narrative medicine, Dr. Rita Sharon. Try to be one of those people that nothing is lost. By Henry James, a quote that Dr. Rita Sharon uses, and I find very appropriate for today. Wishing you all a wonderful morning as you move into your afternoon. On the continent of Africa, I send love to Mama Africa, and I send love to you, to all of you. In Kwagala, I love you.